By the age of 8, Preeti Srinivasan was a national level swimmer. At 17, she captained the Tamil Nadu under-19 women's cricket team. Apart from being a great sports person, she was a brilliant student. However, at age 18, a freak accident paralyzed her, neck down. Since then, she has been in a wheelchair. This did not stop Preeti. She had to relearn everything she knew and start life afresh. Today, she is a PhD scholar at IIT Madras, a motivational speaker, a writer, a psychologist, and founder of Soul Free. She wears many hats, and it is a pleasure to be speaking with her. Hello, Preeti. Welcome to the Now in Times Talk from the Heart show. Not just to you, to our viewers as well. It is truly, as I said, a pleasure to be speaking with you. You have been doing some really amazing, inspirational work, and we want our audience to know a lot about it. So let's start with, you suffered an accident that completely changed your life when you were 18. You were so active. You were in the prime of your life, 18. You're having fun, doing everything, brilliant student. Tell us, how did this happen?
Right. First of all, I want to thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to connect with you and your lovely audience. I had been to Goa for the first time in my life for just a few weeks back. So I'm really thrilled that I'm able to connect with you now. So thank you so much. And I thank the audience for being with me and journeying with me through this, very lovely, adventurous and roller coaster ride of a life that I'm having. So yes, life till the age of 18 was an absolute dream. Not even the shadow of failure touched my life, and everything I did, I seemed to effortlessly excel at. I was an only child. My parents, my grandparents, my extended family showered love upon me. Everybody who met me felt I was a star, kind of, So I was good at everything, and I worked hard, and I felt I was getting the benefits or reaping the rewards of the hard work I was putting in. So everything I got in the form of accolades and awards and everything I felt was absolutely something I deserved, right? And then in a split second, I had, like many 18-year-olds, I had gone on a college excursion from Chennai to Pondicherry, and it was a day outing with a couple of busloads of kids, dancing about, playing Antakshari and visiting the various temples and churches and having lunch and basically fooling around and enjoying ourselves. And on the way back at around, let's say, 3 o'clock or so, it was warm. So we decided that we would stop off. There were a bunch of beach houses, and behind were private stretches of beach. And one of the students who were with me, his father was owning one of the properties there. So we went to the beach to just play because there was nobody there, and we were hanging out. We played tennis ball cricket, we laughed, and then when it got really kind of uncomfortably warm, the guys went into the water. So they were going deeper in to swim, whereas the girls, who were probably 10 or 12 of us, we were holding hands and playing in about thigh-deep water. So a receding wave kind of ate the sand under my feet. And as you introduced me so sweetly, I've been swimming from the age of 3. So I have been diving into water and spending 5-6 hours every day in the water all my life. So I automatically dove in face forward with my hands going first, like I've done a million times over. But that particular day was fateful because the moment my face went underwater, I felt a shock travel through my system. And then when you go into water without really preparing for it, without holding your breath, the immediate instinct is to try to stand back up. I tried to stand back up and I couldn't. So my thought was, okay, what's going on here? So I held my breath. And when I started kind of floating, my friends pulled me out. So it was probably much shorter than all the things I'm saying now.
Correct, correct.
Maximum of 25, 30 seconds.
I
I
know.
didn't hit anything hard. Didn't hit the ocean floor. I didn't hit a rock. There was not a drop of blood. Nothing basically happened. It was totally, anticlimactic, like one may say. But life as I knew it till that moment was over. My friends pulled me out, and in that split second, I had become a quadriplegic. So actually, I had broken my neck at the C4, C5 level, and I'm paralyzed below the neck. So I don't
Well,
have hand function, I don't have finger function, I can't move my wrists. So everything that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis is a challenge for me now.
you know, you said that you were a star then, your family considered you a star then. But today I think your family has expanded. It is no longer just that family that you have at home. I think it has become national and at some level international because people today recognize you for the work that you're doing. As I said in my introduction, you know, the work you're doing is so brilliant. It's admirable. It is making a difference, and you are definitely an agent of change. So you still are a star. So it's not that you were a star. You still are a star in our eyes. Now, 18 is a time when you had that accident. You were in the peak, you know, at the peak of your youth, and suddenly you were a quadriplegic. You couldn't move, like you said, your hands, your legs. You couldn't do anything. What was the what were the challenges besides you can't move? Like, what was the most difficult challenge that you had to face?
Oh, it was totally shattering in the sense that, see, I spent several days in the ICU, not even being, I didn't know where I was, or I went through in and out of consciousness. I had high fever. Then I had to have surgery to fix the broken bone in my neck. And soon afterwards, I developed fluid in my lungs and almost died. And even then, I had to fight the system because the doctors were basically not taking care at all. They would come and go, and with the fluid in my lungs, I was almost dying. I couldn't sleep day or night, and I couldn't breathe. And my mother was just standing and falling asleep because she was just awake 24/7. And it was tremendously challenging. It just shattered my very sense of identity. I didn't know who I was. I was just like a, you could say, dead man not walking, but dead woman just lying there, not being able to absorb what had happened to her. So even then, I believe I'm alive today because I fought the doctor, because he was very senior and he came with an entourage for the daily rounds. And he laughed and he would make some jokes and he would say how beautiful, because they had to shave my head and they put a couple of holes in my skull, and they did something with it so that they could stabilize my neck. And that, I mean, he would say I look like a rowdy, and how, that kind of thing. And then I looked at him and I said, doctor, don't you see I'm dying? It's all well and good that you're making jokes, but if it were your daughter in this position, would you still be reacting the same way? I asked him. I've not slept for 3 nights and I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I'm dying. And then at that point, his face changed and he barked some orders. And that afternoon, they gave me a procedure where they stick a tube down into your lung, and they pull out all that
Suction,
fluid.
though.
Yes, it's called something I can't remember right now, but it's a proper procedure. And after that, I slowly started getting better. So I believe that it's my ability to fight back. even when something is totally lost, that has kept me alive today. So the challenges were innumerable. There's no system of rehabilitation at all in India. Actually, right after my accident happened and when I was on the sand in the beach, I said I should not be moved because I had learned some CPR and general stabilization techniques while I was studying in the US. So I said they need to stabilize me, I should not be moving. They said it would take 3 hours for a doctor to come, but they were able to arrange for an ambulance. So then my friends, I told them the right way to hold me, but halfway through the beach sand I started blacking out. I couldn't see anymore. So I told them to slowly put me back down on the sand again, and then I did some breathing techniques and all that. Thankfully, as a swimmer, you know all that. So then when I could see again, I told them to hold me and put me in the ambulance. I was taken to the nearest very renowned hospital in Pondicherry, but the doctors, when they saw me, they said it's an accident case, take her to Chennai. So in fact, I was robbed of that golden hour. I was robbed of proper medical support, emergency medical support. Would I be walking today without it? I don't know, but we will never know because
True.
I only received that emergency medical care 4 hours once they reached Chennai. So the doctors are taking an oath that life is all important, but the system is not working that way. Somewhere we need to start, and the medical system needs to be more accountable in our country. So right from there was no rehabilitation for a person in my condition. This was 1998. Absolutely nothing. So thankfully, my father was in the US at the time. He was working in Chicago. And I got admission after a lot of struggle from him because he was himself falling apart on an emotional and in every way. But he had to
Obviously.
work to get that admission from me. But I was blessed to get admission into the Rehab Institute of Chicago, which is amongst the top 5 in the world for spinal injury rehab. So despite that blessing, um, it was very difficult because my heart just was gone. My sense of identity was lost. Everything I had done with my body. Every achievement of mine. Who was I? Was I a girl? Was I a champion? Was I a cricketer? Was I a swimmer? I was nothing anymore. I was a vegetable. And guess, you can imagine, right? At 18, you thought you were
Absolutely.
beautiful, you thought you were this, you thought you were that. And in a split second, you were nothing at all. I was lost. I was suicidal. I wanted to escape my reality. So that's what was probably to the answer to the question was I couldn't deal with it. I was in denial. I wanted to stay in denial. I wanted to say Hakuna Matata. If the world turns its back on me, I'm turning my back on the world.
Right.
So that was the starting point. That was the most difficult thing to deal with. Was the look in people's eyes. When they saw me, they looked at me with admiration and love and approval, and then they didn't look at me at all. It was like I had become invisible. It was like I didn't exist, and I couldn't bear that. So that was the most difficult thing.
Right. You said that your parents, your mum, and your dad have been your support. You've always said that, right? Besides mom and dad being there to support you, to motivate you to live every minute, every hour, every day, what else kept you going? Because like you've just described, it must have been it must have been extremely difficult. I mean, I'm putting it lightly. I wouldn't know what you're feeling, Preeti, because I'm not there. Have gone through it, so we can only imagine what you must have gone through. So, what was it besides mom and dad motivating you? What kept you going?
It was devastating, truly. I didn't know how to deal with it. I would wake up every morning thinking this is the day I walk. Because despite our education, my father is an engineer, I mean, we could not absorb that those sentences that said a spinal cord injury has no cure. It can happen to anyone at any time, but it does not have a cure. So I could not imagine that I am going to spend the rest of my life like this. So, like anybody, we did the rehab. We were in the system. They told us physiotherapy, occupational therapy, this, that, and the other thing. We tried to look at various cures, any kind of experimental procedures, what could be done. I tried to escape. I would watch, I would listen to audio books, I would watch videos on astronomy or anything I could find, anything that would take me away from what was here and now. Uh, and pretty much I did that for months. My father said, sit in the wheelchair, I'll take you out. We were in the heart of Chicago. We were in the place that close to Navy Pier that they call the Magnificent Mile, where the best shopping in the world exists. He wanted to take me there. I didn't want to go. He pushed the wheelchair and to a certain distance, and I got panic attacks. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't bear to be seen the way they were seeing me. So that was the kind of utter desolation that I was in. And that was the time actually our spiritual roots took hold.
Now, Preeti, today, what is your average day like? Because you are wearing so many hats, right? You're doing so much. What do you start with first? Like, do you keep days for all the different jobs that you do? What is your typical day like?
So most of my day, starting from 9 in the morning till late at night, is about Soul Free. Soul Free is an organization that I started in 2013, and for the last decade, we've been trying to improve the quality of life of persons facing a lifetime of paralysis after spinal cord injury. A spinal cord injury happens, it can happen to anyone at any time. It's like a
True.
sudden life altering condition, the way it happened to me. But many of us are not as blessed as I am in terms of having a loving, caring family that would do anything for me. Many of them are coolie workers. They fall from trees, they fall from construction sites, they're auto drivers who have accidents, bike accident, young kids thinking that they know everything and they are invincible and immortal. They don't wear helmets. They race around thinking that that's the joy of the world. So many of them, I want to request the youngsters to imagine that, they are not immortal and they should take care of road safety precautions, because it doesn't take more than a split second to turn an 18-year-old star into a quadriplegic. So just for 1 second, they need to think about that before they do anything rash. That's my request. So this is what Soul Free is doing for people living below the line of poverty who don't have any rehabilitation mechanisms in India. And they just don't know what to do. By the time they leave the hospital, they're probably already in debt, right? And then the family is told, that's it, nothing can be done. Go home and give the person physiotherapy. And one physiotherapy session costs 800 rupees. How are they going to afford it for the rest of their lives?
Absolutely.
Even I couldn't. When my father passed away, everything that was being done to take care of my body, we stopped. So life becomes extremely difficult, and that rehab is the only thing, because actually spinal cord injury is not a disease, it's a condition. It's like my brain is fine and my body is fine, but the Wi-Fi network between the brain and body isn't working.
Right.
That's it. It's like a Wi-Fi strike. So then what is wrong with me? Actually nothing. My body doesn't respond or doesn't cooperate now the way it used to. But actually nothing is wrong. All I need to do is to retrain myself, re-engineer my thinking and my physical abilities to become self-reliant from a physiological, psychological, and socioeconomic perspective. So that is what Soulfree is doing, to try to completely reintegrate them into mainstream society. So apart from our outreach programs, wherever they are, we are trying to improve their quality of life with mobility aids, with medical support. We offer them hospital beds, air beds, wheelchairs, so many things that they need to bring them out. But then what we found that without the rehab, without being able to be financially self-sustaining as well, they go back, they regress, they get into bed, they go back to depression. So we started the Soulfree Inspire Center, which is India's first integrated spinal rehabilitation center in 2021. And today, more than 100 people have completed their rehab, and many of them are now employing people. So it's been a very, very beautiful and transformative journey.
Congratulations, Preeti. That's an amazing feat. Amazing. It is not just one or two people whose life you are changing. It's those 100 people who are then affecting many more. So awesome. To our next question, you just spoke about the amazing work that Soulfree is doing. What exactly motivated the formation and the foundation of Soulfree? And it is difficult to start something new more often than not. What were some of the challenges you had to face while forming, setting it up, and today while running it?
Right. So, like I said, it started from absolutely panic mode in my life as well, because my father, who was my bedrock, he was my friend, my philosopher, my guide, my everything, and my mother was taking care of me throughout. So that team suddenly fell apart when my father passed away overnight, and my mother, who had spent more years with him than with her own family, she couldn't bear it. So she had a heart attack 4 days after that, and my life was totally rocked again. I didn't know who would feed me. I didn't know who would go to the market. I didn't know how I would have a bath, and I was totally lost. And then we found out that my mother needed bypass surgery. She had to have a quintuple bypass, of 7 hour surgery, which would be life threatening. So it was like being thrown into the deep again. Like, till my father was there, I never had to make any decision of any import. And suddenly I was the breadwinner and the sole decision maker in my house. I had never taken an important decision, and this was about my mother's life. For a bypass, I needed 8-10 lakhs. I didn't know where to find it. I didn't know what my father had left behind. He didn't leave a will. And we live in a country where to get my father's death certificate, they're asking for a bribe. And I couldn't go anywhere. And my God, it was so, there was such a sense of helplessness. And absolutely, your sense of agency is taken away from you. You feel lost and broken. And from that point, I had to take control. I had to find out what was in the bank, what I would do. I took my mother, my entire family, and I shifted to Chennai. Which hospital, which doctor, everything I had to decide on. And 20 people would give me guidance from 20 directions. And if I didn't listen to them, they all got offended. They all felt, here is a girl in a wheelchair that I'm trying to help, and she doesn't want to take my help. I was like, my God, I can't.
You're being pulled in all directions.
Exactly. So then finally, my father's friends, my father had gone to Anna University, the College of Engineering, Gindi. He was from the 72 batch. And many of them are CEOs and at the top of their field. So many of them came to me and said, okay, what are you going to do now? This is a 7-hour life-threatening surgery. What happens to you if there comes a time when your family is not around to care for you? I was like, because I didn't have an answer. And
Right.
I Googled, I researched, and I found that there's not one place I can go and live with dignity. even if I can pay. We are 1/5 of the world's population, 50% of that is the woman's vote. And should even 5% of those women be significantly impaired and not have family support, they have nowhere to go. They can either be abandoned onto the streets or they can be forced to commit suicide. These are the options.
A very grim reality.
Yeah, I was devastated and I thought I was having a very difficult time. And thankfully, my mother's surgery went very well. At 71, she is now still my primary caregiver 25 years after my accident. I came back to Tiruvannamalai and I found in three months span of time that I had gone, two paraplegic girls, that is, they were paralyzed below the waist. They were told that they're a shame and a burden and a curse on the family, that nobody will call them for social functions, and they're being ostracized by the community, and nobody is willing to marry their brother because nobody wants to take on this burden. So they were told, give us a break, die. Poison was left next to them and they drank it and passed away. So when my father's friends had come and told us, there's nothing, what are you going to do if your family is not around? My mother said, you be the change. I have faith in you. You do something for the world. I said, Ma, what can I do? I can't even eat the food in front of me. I can't even care for myself. What am I going to do? I don't know how to run an organization. I don't know anything about HR policies and I don't know legal and accounts and all that. What do I know? I can't do it. But when these two girls died, I felt I had to do something. Because if I was going to be scared, and if I was going to allow fear of failing to rule me, then I would become part of the problem, not part of the solution. And that's where Soulfree was born. And today, Soulfree supports more than 2,000 people all over Tamil Nadu and as far away as Maharashtra who have lived with paralysis after spinal cord injury and are really struggling for survival. So more than 2,000 families. And now we have this Soulfree Inspire Center. And through this medium, I would like to invite anybody who has had a spinal cord injury and who needs rehabilitation and cannot afford it or cannot find a place to go. We offer international standard care free of cost. And I feel that this is a model that I've created an experiential model for spinal injury rehabilitation. We are looking at a successful managing spinal cord injury successfully after spinal cord injury. We are not looking to cure it, and we are looking at it from an experiential perspective. This is not a theoretical framework that we've developed. This body's 25 years of experience has helped it find something that is totally different from what is there elsewhere. And this model, if it can be replicated, I invite all the governments. We need one in every state. We need one in every district because people are dying away and we don't have any support system for them. So this is Soulfree's work at the moment.
I don't even know what to say because it is mind-blowing what you are doing, what Soulfree is doing. Everything that you are saying is so much to absorb, and I think we need to take a small break. So let's take a small break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back soon. Welcome back to the Navin Times Talk from the Heart. We are speaking with Preeti Srinivasan. She is an agent of change, and on her wheels, she is bringing in so much of change that is changing lives of those with spinal injury. Preeti, you just told us about Soul Free, about the work, about its objectives, and much more. Now, for a person who has a spinal cord injury and wants to live independently, what is the advice that you would give?
Primarily, it's about rehabilitation. We have to relearn, re-engineer our thoughts, and we have to find a way to function again in the new body. It's as simple as that. We need to learn how never to get a bed sore, because a bed sore is the main reason for death in people with spinal cord injury. Even the lowest level spinal cord injuries will not have urine and bowel control. So we will have to relearn how to become self-reliant in terms of handling our urine and bowel functions. And we have to basically learn how to get back to work, because without an income, life becomes difficult. And not just for people with spinal cord injury, with every disability in India, the kind of narrative that is told to us is that we are worthless, we are useless, we can't do anything. We need to change this narrative here and now. Anybody with a disability, I want you to come out. I want you to really dream again and fight to fulfill those dreams, because society will change only then. Because when I tried to join college, we spoke about how I was in the top 2 percentile of the student population in the USA. When I tried to join college, a correspondence course, I was rejected. Can you imagine that?
Right.
I could have gone to Harvard or Yale or Princeton, and in India I was rejected from a correspondence course because I was in a wheelchair. I was told there are 15 days of practical classes, there are no lifts, no ramps, don't join. The question they asked us was, why do you people like you want to study? That's the mindset. So we have to change it. When we come out and say we want to write an exam and we need a scribe, the kind of question that is asked to us is, your disability is not on our list.
Right.
So the things that are happening, I kept fighting. And today I have become the first woman with a 90% disability to ever gain admission into the PhD program of any of the IITs in their history. So we need to be the agents of change. We need to break barriers so that the next generation can have it slightly more easy. Today, much of India is still inaccessible. I can't go watch a movie because the movie theaters are not accessible. I can't go into a restaurant because you check. You go to your favorite restaurant and you can check if I can come into it. The favorite places that you go, any of the malls, anywhere, please check if a person like me, if Preeti can come in. Then you will see how many places I can't be, purely because it's inaccessible. Let me tell you, disability is something that is universal. At some point, we may need it. So society has to take the onus to stop disabling us and make the country accessible, make the country inclusive, and make the country universally tolerant for all. We all are part of this country and we all need to be included. So that is where we need to start. So anybody with a disability, please fight back. Please make your voice heard. And you are as much part of society and as valuable as everybody else. First, we need to absorb that, and we need to then change the mindsets of others so that we make the entire society absorb that. Then only we can be independent. We can't be independent in a society that disables us, where every place is inaccessible. They need to ensure that we get an education. They need to ensure that we become employable so that we can gain respectable employment. It needs to happen, and it needs to start with us. As long as we are sitting behind YouTube, hidden in our own homes, it will not happen. We need to come out. We need to ask for what is our right. And that slowly but surely is happening. And once we do that, once we get that rehabilitation, once we are trained, once we are educated, once we start working and become financially self-sufficient, then we'll be like everybody else, which we already are, but we need to implement certain things to make it happen. So that's my thought for everybody with a disability out there.
Right. So basically, what you are saying is that the mindset has to change. And the mindset that needs to change first is those who have a disability and understand that this disability can be changed and you can make a difference not only to yourself but also to society as a whole, and you can be contributing productive citizens of the country.
Absolutely. The parents' mindsets need to change. They need to stop looking at women, girls, young girls with disability as a burden, because only 6% of girls with disability get an education. This is from the census. Yes, the government needs to do several things, but the parents also need to do a lot, and the children will automatically, once they have an opportunity to get an education. Without an education, I might not be speaking the way I am. It's because that sense of self-worth that my parents instilled in me that is talking now. If every parent can do that, then things will change. If the government decides that every girl with disability compulsorily should get education, should study up to 12th grade, everything will change. If schools become accessible, if colleges become accessible, everything will change.
Preeti, speaking with you for the last about, I think, 40 minutes or so, the first thing that comes across is the confidence that you have. And would you contribute this confidence to your upbringing, to your parents, or to the education that you received?
Actually, that's a very complicated and very important question. Thank you for giving me a chance to answer that. Actually, I was filled with fear after my accident.
Which is natural.
I was 18. I was absolutely petrified of everything. I had the fear. My worst fear was that when my parents weren't around, people would take me, people we pay, would take me and throw me into the forest to be eaten away by the animals. That much was the extent of my fear, of that helplessness, of that dependence.
Very terrifying.
Terrifying. So actually, I think it's the spiritual anchor that I have.
Grounding.
I actually died a couple of times. I've had one out-of-body experience. The second time I was dead for 8 minutes, to the extent that my body became blue and cold. And then it came back to life. So you and anybody with a science background might know that after 30 seconds, when the brain doesn't receive oxygen, it starts to die. So if it seems that most of my brain cells are working and I'm talking sanity to you,
it's a miracle.
It's a miracle. Exactly. So I am not talking here. I'm an instrument. I don't think about what I say. I don't prepare. I think I told you that. I just speak spontaneously because I have nothing to fear anymore. So I lead a life that is absolutely here and now. I feel totally alive. In dying, I learned how to be fully alive. And in being in a wheelchair, I learned how to be totally free. Because I need nothing. I want nothing. I have no personal agenda in this life. My life is in service of something bigger than me. And for that opportunity, I feel blessed and grateful.
It's such a paradox what you said, that in a wheelchair I have found my freedom. But there is the paradox comes with so much of wisdom. The wisdom that you are communicating right now is mind-blowing. It is so deep, it is so extensive. Now, for people who are paraplegics, who have disabilities in general, what is your message beside, change your mindset? Is there anything else that you would like to tell them that could, according to you, make a difference in their lives?
Definitely, Soul Free is here for anybody with a spinal cord injury anywhere in India. All you need to do is find a way to come here, and we will provide the best quality care at no cost. So, only thing, you need to have a spinal cord injury, and you need to be eligible in terms that you need to be financially needing that care. So that is there. For people generally with disabilities, I would say the same thing, that they should definitely try to get an education, because that is the greatest leveler. Education is the greatest leveler. Today we have opportunities for voice-based jobs. We have so many things, but without an education, it becomes difficult. So
So true.
please find a way to go to school, find a way to go to college, fight if they say no. So that is what I want to say, that parents, if parents can support the youngsters in getting an education, it might be difficult, but you need to take them there, because without schooling, life becomes very difficult. So let's fight for access as a society, and I think things will change. And for people who want to volunteer, who want to help, I would like to say that Soul Free needs volunteers on every level, because across India, especially in the Northeast, in places like Goa, including Goa and Maharashtra and all that, there are no rehabilitation centers of any kind for people with spinal cord injury. So if you come to know about anybody who needs that, let them reach out to us. You can go to our website at www.soulfree.org. You can reach out to me directly. I can provide contact details to Navhind, and they can reach out. Anybody who needs care, we need to reach them as soon as they leave the hospital, not after their bodies are already rotting. So please find a way to get them to our center. For people with spinal cord injury, this is what I can say, that all we need to do. And the other thing I would like to request is, in terms of the central and the state governments, is to try to get more representation of people with disabilities in the government. See, for example, women, we've had a lot of times when women were marginalized. But now, when we speak about the Minister for Women's Health and Welfare and all that, she's usually a woman, because she knows what it feels like. Somebody like Smriti Irani would have gone through so much of battles with the glass ceiling. She knows. So how come it is that none of the disability departments has anybody with a disability? If there is no representation for us in the government, if there is no representation for us anywhere, how will we be able to speak out? How will our voice be heard? So why can't there be a person? See, a little while back, Mr. Shashi Tharoor spoke so eloquently, because he was in a wheelchair because he had done something to his knee, and he found that the Indian Parliament is not accessible. So why? Because none of us have ever been there. We are not allowed to go into temples. We are not allowed to go in anywhere because we are considered less than. That's the first thing that needs to change, and it can happen only if we have a voice. So I would say, on both sides, one, we need to find our voice, but the government and society needs to enable us, empower us in a way that we can find our voice. So it's like the chicken and the egg. Everything needs to happen, and it is changing. It is changing. For example, the Disability Commissioner in Goa now, Mr. Pavaskar, Guru Prasad Pavaskar, he's extremely can-do. He's extremely helpful. He's extremely aware of the need for inclusion and access and all that. They are working very hard. But it needs to seep down into all levels. And the more it reaches all the states, we have 28 states, right? So it needs to reach everywhere. And for that to happen, it needs to reach the center. The center needs to be aware that, for example, the government of India and the government of every state has not recognized spinal cord injury as a specific multiple disability at all. It is still pooled under locomotor disabilities. A locomotor disability is when you have trouble walking. But a spinal cord injury paralyzes you completely. I don't have urine control. I don't have bowel control. I don't have sensation. If somebody takes a knife and cuts my thumb, I won't even know. So it is a specific multiple disability. This is not there. First, this needs to come. Then we need to get data. We need to have statistics. Today, if I should ask you, in a state like Tamil Nadu or any state, how many people with spinal cord injury happen? How many spinal cord injuries happen every year? How many happen to women? How many happen to men? What happens to them once they leave the hospital? There is no data anywhere. So if I'm not even a statistic, then where do I go?
Makes a lot
So
of
the
sense what you're saying. And Preeti, what you said, that the change has to come from all quarters. It has to be a give and take. It is not only the government, it is you and me who need to make that change. It is people with these injuries who need to take some initiative. So I suppose what basically I'm saying is that we need more Preeti Srinivasans. So we need to clone a few and get, because it is going to take an entire village to make that change, right? You have made a slight dent, but it's not enough. We need to do more, and we all need to contribute in some way or the other. Now, you said that you can volunteer. Now, for a person like me or anyone who's watching, not just in Goa, because this is going to be up on YouTube, anyone who's watching and would like to volunteer, for example, someone sitting in Goa, for example, someone sitting in Ahmedabad, how can they volunteer? Because you all are based in Tamil Nadu.
in Tamil Nadu, yes. So for the people in Tamil Nadu, we need all the help we can get across India and across the world, actually. See, finding a physiotherapist is not difficult, but finding a physiotherapist with exposure and experience in the area of spinal injury rehab is very difficult. So if you are there, if you can come and help us in any way, if you can help train our people, and if you can even talk to them and guide them over the phone, wherever you are, and then come once a month or something like that. We need your help. Physiotherapists, occupational therapists, PMR doctors across the world, physical medicine and rehabilitation specialists across the world, nursing experts across the world, any nurse who has recently retired who would like to come and work in our organization, employment, volunteering, for everything. We have India's first inclusive and wheelchair accessible terrace garden. We need help making our terrace garden thrive. We have India's first fully automated temperature controlled wheelchair accessible hydrotherapy unit. If you are an expert in hydrotherapy for people with paralysis, if you are an expert in Watsu or any of the specialized training systems anywhere in the world, please reach out to us. We need all the help we can get. Money is something, but money will come. What we need is people. We need the love of people. Anyone, the power of one is really great. Anyone in India can say, I'm going to fight for making the places around me accessible. Petition. Ask for your restaurant to become wheelchair accessible. This anybody can do. Go find out how many kids in wheelchair are there in your school. Actually, parents are fighting not to have special kids in their school. That mindset needs to change, right? We are as much like you. We just need a different set of accommodations. So we need to understand that anybody can have a disability, and people with different abilities need to be part of the community. So go find out how many wheelchair users are there in your kid's school or in your kid's college, or if you're the kid in your college or your place of work. Why are they not there? Because they are being discriminated against. You petition. If you have 40 employees in your company, at least 4 of them or 2 of them can be persons with disability. We all can be the change. We all can be the power of one.
Right. Now, we have just time for one more question. Preeti, you have got so many awards, so many accolades. Which one is dearest to you? The closest to your heart?
I guess the Kalpana Chawla Award was extraordinary because apparently it's the second highest civilian honor that can be given by the state of Tamil Nadu. It is given on, I think, Republic Day by the Chief Minister. So it was extraordinary, and I got to go and I got to see some things that were very, very special. But even more than the award itself, about a week after I returned from the award, I got an email saying that I have seen all the things you are doing, and I think it's incredible. And I think Kalpana would be proud of you. And I was like, huh? Kalpana? So I didn't know who it was. Then I found that it was actually her husband wrote to me. And then he sent me her biography, and he sent me some patches from NASA that she was wearing when she went on that mission. And I have all those till date. It means so much to me. It's extraordinary that he felt that he could reach out to me and that I was deserving of an award in the name of Kalpana Chawla, who is a heroine for all our generations, right?
Right. Preeti, it was absolutely an eye-opener speaking with you. You have made me, and I'm sure the viewers, realize the importance of gratitude, the importance of realizing that we need to look after each other. We need to make life, easier in some way for those who are not as fortunate as us. You have not only been very honest, you have spoken beautifully. You have made us see the other side so much more clearly. And you have shared your wisdom with us. For that, a very, very big thank you from the viewers, from us here at Goa 365 and the Navin Times. Thank you so much. And we wish you all the very best in all your endeavors. Thank you again. And to our viewers, thanks for your time, for your patience. And I'm sure you have learned as much as I have. Take care of yourself. Until next time, it's bye from all of us.